spike in cases of coronavirus. Pakistan has 10,000 confirmed infections and 224 deaths. The country is under a nationwide lockdown with most shops and offices closed. Land borders, train services and international flights have all been shut down. But a restriction limiting gatherings at mosques to 5 people has been lifted, opening the door to huge congregations during Ramadan. The Prime Minister has defended his decision, arguing citizens could make up their own minds about the risk.
Do we forcefully tell them to not go to mosques? And if they do, will the police put worshippers in jail? This does not happen in an independent society. In an independent society, we make people come together. In an independent society, people use their independent minds and then decide what is better for the country and what is not.
Let's take you to Islamabad. We can speak to Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, chairman of the opposition Pakistan's People's Party. Good to have you with us. Do you agree with Imran Khan? Are citizens able to make up their own mind on this issue?
Thank you so much for having me. Actually, I don't quite understand the Prime Minister's logic and reasoning to change the restrictions that were already in place, that surprisingly, for the first few weeks of this lockdown, were being implemented relatively well by the religious community across Pakistan. And the restrictions that 5 members, usually those who, the custodians of the mosques who live there anyway and their families, would be allowed to pray in the mosques while citizens were urged to pray at home. When the Prime Minister eased some restrictions with the lockdown, including barber shops and tailors in parts of the country, it's obviously difficult to convince religiously minded people when such restrictions are being lifted. However, since they were cooperating, the restrictions in mosques were going well. I see no need for the Prime Minister to ease those restrictions and then to go on justifying allowing citizens to risk not only their own lives, but the lives of others.
So therefore, will you be putting these restrictions back in place in Sindh, the province that you control?
So, in the Sindh province, we were the first not only to introduce the lockdown, but also engage the religious community and impose these initial restrictions. We don't have the capacity to police all mosques in the provinces, given the mixed messaging that has now come from the federal government. We look to still engage with the religious community to try and convince them to abide by the lockdown restrictions that they were already abiding by. But of course, that is now difficult when the Prime Minister of the country is on national television, making it an issue about freedom. I believe that this is a colossal failure of leadership in Pakistan. And when you compare us to the rest of the Muslim world, when countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and every other Muslim country have taken steps to safeguard the lives of their citizens, this is a failure of leadership. This is not the time for populist electoral politics. This is the time to take decisions based on the advice of doctors and health experts, and doctors from Pakistan from Lahore to Karachi are protesting, are giving press conferences, appealing, beseeching us to take those necessary steps to protect them, to ease the burden on them in our healthcare system.
So do you trust the government's figures that they are putting out about the amount of infections and deaths?
I think that they are most certainly capacity issues, and no province is being supported up to their expectations by the federal government of Pakistan in increasing their testing capacity. Obviously, without increased testing, the efficiency of our lockdown is questionable. The province of Sindh is conducting the most tests per capita, but we appeal to the federal government to not only support the government of Sindh to drastically increase our testing capacity, but support all provinces in Pakistan in increasing their testing capacity.
What do you say to people who argue that Pakistan simply can't afford a lockdown like we're seeing in the West, that a lockdown like this puts people at risk of dying of hunger?
I don't think that any country, any economy in the world is designed or capable to maintain such a lockdown, but everywhere governments and leaders have prioritized the lives of their citizens and the health of their citizens. We work with the philosophy that while we can bring an economy back to life, we can't bring people back to life. Of course, the economic indicators are particularly alarming for Pakistan. Our economy, even before the COVID pandemic, was mismanaged and weak. The World Bank report that has recently come out suggests that only 3 countries in South Asia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the Maldives, may enter into a recession as a result of this pandemic. But just because we've identified the problems doesn't mean that we shouldn't take the steps to address them. Just like the federal government has a responsibility to run the economy, it now has a responsibility to protect people's lives, protect people's health, and secure their livelihood. I think the state of Pakistan sends a very incorrect message when the first relief package that is announced from the federal level is for the construction sector and not for our frontline workers, our doctors, our nurses, and all those who risk their lives every single day in combating this.
But nonetheless, when your party was in government, healthcare spending was below 3% of GDP. So do you not also bear some responsibility for the state of the infrastructure, for the resources that are available right now?
I think that Pakistan will regret not spending a higher ratio of its GDP on healthcare. The Pakistan People's Party, whenever it was in government, drastically increased spending on healthcare, but no healthcare system, not the healthcare system of New York, nor the healthcare system of Karachi, has the capacity to deal with a global pandemic.
I mean, and this is pandemic, and we're also looking at a global recession as well. And I wanted to ask you, given that, if you are worried about the particular aid programs that Pakistan relies on now possibly being neglected as countries have to worry about their own economies.
I absolutely worry not just about Pakistan, but other developing countries at the time of this global pandemic. I believe that across the world for the last decade, from the US, from the United States to India, we've had this flirtation with nationalistic populism, an increase in partisanship, and a shift away from multilateralism that has left all of us ill-equipped and unprepared to deal with this global pandemic together as a global community. And in Pakistan's case, unfortunately, we haven't managed yet to forge that national unity required to fight this in the most efficient manner possible.
We do very much appreciate your time. And before we let you go, can I ask you how you and your family will be observing Ramadan?
Thank you so much. We will be observing Ramadan in our homes. I personally will be offering my prayers, whether it's the 5-time-a-day prayers or our Taraweeh prayers that we observe in Ramadan at home. And I would call upon Muslims across the world, particularly those in Pakistan, to please stay at home, pray at home, not only to protect themselves, but to protect others.
Mr. Zardari, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Enjoy Ramadan and time with your family. And before we go, we have to show you some adorable pictures.